But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Being kind is the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise, and my fucking window is not. That's not what it should be. What the hell? OBS, why do you do this to me? Oh, that's why. Now I see I did not actually have it set on the right thing, so OBS did not recognize it. There we go, that's what we were after. Perfect. How's everybody doing tonight? It's been another fucking week, and a friend and comrade drew my attention to this piece of writing. I thought we might start out with it. It's called The Kind of Leader We Need, Caleb Maupin and the Rise of Innovationism. They're really trying to make that a thing. Bless. That's one of the things about Iceland, actually. Like, the way you say bye in Icelandic is bless bless. Which sounds, if you're not used to it, like somebody's sort of sarcastically and somewhat southernly throwing shade at you. Amid the 12-day war, Maupin traveled from Los Angeles to Chicago and back to Brooklyn, organizing a peace campaign and preparing for CPI's upcoming July 12th convention. On June 22nd in Chicago, CPI distributed over 400 copies of its booklet on Yemen's Houthis. Wow, that's such a fucking revolutionary achievement right there. They distributed 400 copies of a booklet in Chicago. They distributed a booklet. The next day, the group held a rally in Millennium Park celebrating Burkinabe leader Ibrahim Traoré. I'm very curious, when we say rally, I notice there's no numbers here. No, there's nothing that says how many people showed up, or whether anyone other than the group itself showed up. I'm guessing that if there was anybody else who showed up to this pathetic Nazgul spectacle, they probably would have said. These events followed Maupin's return from the Global Digital Forum in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia, where he met with anti-imperialist leaders from around the world. He then went straight to the streets of Los Angeles to report on widespread civil unrest. Like, you see, he's so revolutionary, he was just going to report on it. He wasn't, like, going to do anything. Because I have a feeling that they're not on Team Abolish ICE. There's just nothing about these Nazguls that says that. Even during this flurry of activity, Maupin found time to speak directly to the Iranian people. Wow. Wow, I'm sure they were really waiting for that too. Everyone in Iran was sitting here like, you know, fucking Israeli planes and drones flying over them and shit. Obviously what everyone is thinking there is, I gotta get Caleb Maupin's take on this. He expressed that he stood for, quote-unquote, the real America. Wow, that's so original. You've never heard anyone before who's ever expressed that they stood for, quote-unquote, the real America before. I mean, that's just a mark of sincerity. No grifter would ever say that they stood for, quote-unquote, the real America. An America of working families who reject endless wars and whose voices are ignored by corporate media. And who also ignore him. Like, seriously, okay, if you're in Iran and you're watching this, first of all, salam, chetur estid. Nice, glad to see you, watching. But second of all, like, nobody's fucking heard of this jabroni. Like, literally nobody knows who the hell this guy is. And you really don't need to know who he is, because he's just a grifter. He's a creepy cult fucker. His analysis is less than worthless because he doesn't know anything, either. He described himself as a patriotic American who respects the U.S. military, but recognizes that these bombings serve an international system of globalism/imperialism. Globalism/imperialism. He's really trying to make that a thing. That was like a gotcha when he first did that. And it's like, see, even when he's using terms that sound like they would be potentially part of an overall innocuous leftist analysis, he's using them in a fashy sense. Not the interests of ordinary Americans. This act of solidarity, while bold, was not out of character. Really? Like, what's the bold act of solidarity, though? Yeah, first of all, like, what are we talking about speaking directly? He made a video, I'm guessing. Like, technically, when I did that thing a second ago, I was like, if anyone in Iran's watching this, I was also speaking directly to the Iranian people. Yeah, Maupin has met with Russian President Vladimir Putin as part of the U.S. delegation to the 2024 World Youth Festival. He has personally interviewed Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi. He has spoken at anti-imperialist conferences in Tehran, Moscow, Sochi, Caracas, Brasilia, and Managua. To how many people? But who is Caleb Muppet, and what shaped his worldview? Oh God, it's just a rehash of the shit that's in that horrible cringe cartoon of his. Okay, so anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. I'm gonna drop the link in chat if anyone actually wants to see this absolute shit show. That is just, I think it's probably Caleb Maupin wrote it himself, actually. He is so desperately trying to create a cult of personality around himself, despite not having a personality. But yes, as I mentioned on the Discord, thanks to Riveroon who drew my attention to this person. I know who our jabroni's going to be. Imagine, if you will, if Zaka grifter Chaim Otmezgin merged in body and soul and other things with Graham Linehan, combining October 7th grifting with turf grifting. You would have Maia Poet. And imagine if you also added to that a haircut that makes Graham Linehan's look good. then you would indeed have Maia Poet, who has this weird sort of fucking mushroom thing going on. I don't know. There's the minute you decide to be a reactionary grifter, apparently the entire the world union of hairdressers deserts you, or something, and so they all have shitty haircuts. But that's who we're going to be checking out today. Always on top, so I can actually see what people say in chat. Breast binding in a bomb shelter. Maia Poet on surviving war in the Middle East and within. See, Maia Poet has an amazing story. She survived October 7th, you see. She survived in a very special way by not being there. She survived October 7th the way so many of us did. By not being there. And this is the stuff that her grift is made of. So we've got breast binding in a bomb shelter, Maia Poet on surviving war in the Middle East and many. Although I'm also kind of interested in I lived as a man with Hamas and Hasidics, which is in 4K. But okay. First things first, this is Stephanie Wynn, some kind of therapist. That is her actual fucking... That is her actual fucking channel name. I'm guessing the some kind of means conversion. Like, some kind of therapist. The kind who should be struck off, actually, almost certainly.
Very young age, from the age of 12, was this false belief that my female body, existing in its natural and healthy state, is existing in a state of pathology, and that it could be corrected
this is the way ChatGPT would phrase this.
With hormones and surgeries. And when I
what needs to be corrected right now is that fucking hair. That hair is giving me a headache. And these what the fuck's up with these fucking patterns? The patterns, it's distressing. It's gonna give me a fucking migraine.
Actually, that my body was the only thing that was allowing me to survive this and to make it into the bomb shelter. Imagining myself.
Wait, so the idea is that because her body was capable of taking her to a bomb shelter, it's worth noting, she was nowhere near where there was anything to actually worry about. But so she was able to walk to a bomb shelter, and therefore she must not be trans? This is the stuff, this is seriously, this is her grift.
In a hospital room, an elective radical double mastectomy, and hearing a siren and having to somehow run, and realizing that that would be impossible.
Wait. It would be impossible. Okay, so she decided to detransition. She had not actually, transitioned at all, it's worth noting. Certainly not medically, not really socially either. Other than just, wearing a binder. And so the idea is she decided to detransition because if she had been having surgery at that very moment, she wouldn't have been able to go to the bomb shelter. I think people would wheel you into the basement if that was going on. There are wheels on those fucking gurneys.
I would not have been able to predict that and schedule it. You can't predict a war. The day...
Well, yeah, but so what? You can't predict... so you shouldn't have any procedures at all. You shouldn't get a fucking root canal. You shouldn't get your wisdom teeth out because who knows? There might be a war and you wouldn't be able to get up because you'd be under. So therefore, obviously, dentistry is crap.
For this attack that's just changed all of our lives. I was doing a peace event with Jewish and Arab children, and the next day I wake up and my world is just shattered.
A peace event.
You must be some kind of therapist.
Today I'm here with Maia Poet, and boy does she have...
Okay, it looks like her hair... It's like she's imitating my dog's hair.
A fascinating story for you. Maia is a 24-year-old Israeli-American writer, researcher, and public speaker. She began identifying as transgender at the age of 12 and has recently desisted from a trans identity that lasted half of her life.
And this is, I mean, here we go.
Maya is reflecting on her experience.
I mean, we're already seeing what kind of therapist. Like, obviously not a real therapist. More one of those conversion therapy sort of people. That's why she's some kind of therapist. Like, the kind that would be struck off if ethical standards were actually taken seriously.
Hopes of providing insight for young people struggling with gender distress and for their parents. I will add from my previous conversation with Maya that she essentially lived as a man in the Middle East for several years.
Essentially is doing a lot of work here. I happen to know this because I watched another video called Maia Poet, the final boss of D-Trans Grifters. And yeah, she wasn't actually. Like, there had been no name change or anything like that, actually, and within the Zionist entity, actually, it's not a very good place to be it's not a very good place to be queer in general, because the regime kind of hates queer people.
And narrowly escaped October 7th.
Narrowly escaped, wow. Wow, okay, I can't wait.
So Maya's story is absolutely fascinating because
I mean, I'm surprised that she didn't, like, volunteer to go on Sheryl Sandberg's fucking video. Narrowly escape. I mean, the level of chutzpah. She didn't narrowly escape shit. She was in a different part of it. She was miles away from any of it.
Together several.
I narrowly escaped 9/11 by being in Cincinnati.
A lot of public attention right now between the conflict in the Middle East and the gender madness.
It's interesting how you get a lot of this combination very often of a genocidal Zionist and a massive fucking gender turfical grifter.
Bridges both of those worlds and has such a fascinating personal perspective. So I'm really glad that she reached out to me and then we get to talk today. Maya, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So the last time you and I talked, which was a private conversation, I found myself so in awe of your story. I think I said something like, have you just learned that anytime something bad happens, that it's probably the hand of fate protecting you from death? Because that's happened about 3 times.
Wait, okay, wow, the hand of fate. I can't wait. We got Manos the hand. I should have clipped that movie. Manos the Hands of Fate. If you haven't seen that on Mystery Science Theater 3000, you really should see it. That's apparently
some like seeming inconvenience or something actually resulted in you not getting killed between, you know, living in Israel and being in bomb shelters, and then the fact that you would have been there at the festival on October 7th had it not been for like a ride bailing out or something like that. I mean, your story is just wild.
Oh, this is a new version, actually, because previously it was just because she happened to be in Jerusalem. And it's worth noting that on October, that you wouldn't have been able to plan to be there on October 7th in advance, because that was a spontaneous last-minute decision by the organizers. Literally nobody knew that, even the people who organized it, until practically the day of. So, this is already giving bullshit.
And you have this really personal perspective because there's so much that's happened since October 7th. With regard to Israel and Palestine, that I think
that's a way of putting it.
I think it's easy to eclipse the fact that the event that was interrupted on October 7th was an event of young people coming together to thrive and flourish culturally and promote peace. Like, that's...
No, it was not. Okay, thrive and it was a fucking rave. Okay. It was a rave outside of a fucking concentration camp. Like, I mean, I don't have anything against raves fundamentally, I'm not saying that, but I mean, this is giving it a bit much. And the idea that it was to promote peace, like how, exactly? When it was full of members of the IDF. Like, there were no Palestinians invited to the thing, so how is this promoting peace? Like, that is propaganda from very early on, and you don't hear it as much now, because there was no fucking evidence of it.
Movement that you were a part of. So can we maybe start there? Like, you as a
movement. It was a movement now, was it?
young 20-something living in Israel, being part of the community that was about to be at that festival. Give us a picture of what was going on there.
The community that was about to be at that wow. Wow, I mean, that's such a fascinating way of saying that she was not at that festival.
Well, a lot of things have happened recently that I'm still sort of trying to process, so it's not, I can't promise that my
Any of that explain your haircut?
story is going to be presented in the most, I guess, chronologically accurate way, but
That's fine.
I guess I could start on October 6th if we're looking to before October 7th.
Great.
Well, I mean, that is when history started.
Tell us about October 6th, 2023 in Israel.
So on
Well, okay, so the first thing to know is that a report had come out from a major human rights organization pointing out that 2023 had been the deadliest year for Palestinian children since record keeping began. That's a thing. That gives you a sense of 2003 up until October 6th. Now, I mean, the fucking heartbreaking thing is that to be the deadliest year for Palestinian children, that was like 123 something Palestinian kids were murdered by the regime. And that was record breaking, and then the regime went and murdered, something like 30,000 by now.
October 6th, I was actually doing a peace event between Jewish and Arab children.
Ooh, normalization.
And we were hanging out in a Bedouin village, a bunch of Arabs and Jews.
And notice that Zionists will actually, I think their tongue dries out and turns into biltong if they say Palestinian.
There were the kids who lived in the village, and we brought our own kids, of course.
And let's remember as well that the Palestinian Bedouins who are citizens of the regime, they have Israeli citizenship. They've been for several years now, they've been ethnically cleansed. From their homes in the Naqab. So, talking about a fucking peace event and it's not resisting that's how you know it's fucking bullshit. Hello, Jack Sim. I don't think I've seen you here before. Welcome. And yes, Palestine, hurrah!
Just Jewish and Arab kids. And we had all kinds of fun together. We did arts and crafts.
Yeah, but this is not just a Zionist grifter. She's also a TERF. She's a detransition grifter and a Zionist grifter. She brings together the worlds. She's doing a grift that is bullshitting about October 7th and bullshitting about trans people.
We played songs. A lot of the kids were very young and they didn't speak each other's languages, but that didn't stop them from having a fantastic time. And it was really heartwarming because...
Yeah, because you know that the Jewish Israeli kids are going to eventually join the army and help ethnically cleanse those Bedouin kids from their homes in a few years. Lovely.
In the middle of this village, there are all kinds of rocks and sand and things the kids can trip over and get injured doing. And so we had kids fall down and cry, and it was really the nearest adult to them who helped them up and who kissed their boo-boos.
Wow, what a hero.
So to speak. It didn't matter whether that adult was of the same religion or spoke the same language as them. And so on October 6th, after I had returned...
Wow, I mean, it's just such a fucking utopia on October 6th. Because, she went to a normalization event.
From this event, I wrote a really... long...
okay, and here's the thing. Okay, so... already I find another occasion to call bullshit. Because, what the fake-ass conversion therapist grifter was saying was that she would have been at the Nova rave if it hadn't been for a ride. If she hadn't gotten a ride. But the thing is, she was all the way down in the Naqab with Bedouins. That's right in the same area on the day before. So clearly she had transport. And it's worth noting, October 5 and 6 were the days that thing was supposed to be happening. So clearly she had some way to get there, so she just wasn't fucking going. I just feel that should be pointed out, because, like, she was, on the day before, she was right in the area, but doing something completely different.
On post on Instagram about how incredibly optimistic I was that these kids had such good outcomes, and these kids really thrived in that type of an environment. And I think I said something along the lines of,
well, wait, so the kids thrive in an environment where there are other kids and they play together? I mean, like, that's kind of kids. That's kind of how they work.
you know, peace is possible. Probably not
what do you mean by peace, though?
under the rule of our politicians and all these warmongering outside countries that want to get their grubby little hands mixed up in the Middle East.
You know, as opposed to the U.S. and Israel, who, I mean, obviously, their grubby little hands have all sorts of business being in the Middle East.
And certainly not by the terrorist groups in the region. But if we just teach our kids that they're each other's neighbors and each other's potential best friends.
They're each other's neighbors. That's so cute in a country where, like, that has been constantly just expelling, where, like, colonizers have just been expelling their neighbors for over 78 years now.
And not each other's enemies, that things can really turn around. We just need to invest in our kids. And of course, then on October 7th, so, I mean, I went to sleep, and a few hours later I woke up to a siren, and my whole world as I knew it, and the worlds of Israelis and Palestinians more broadly, just changed in ways that...
Yeah, except, like, I mean, maybe she shouldn't be trying to speak for Palestinians on this one, because I don't think it was actually... I mean, it was quantitatively worse. But the world for Palestinians actually already sucked because they were living under a racist apartheid regime.
None of us could have ever imagined.
Wow, that's such a rich picture of the innocence and optimism that you had, that the other volunteers had, that the children had. These children who didn't deserve to inherit the guilt of their ancestors.
Like, what? Okay, the guilt of what? We're talking about, whose guilt are we talking about? What the hell are we even talking about here?
And you were feeling so optimistic in that moment, and...
Yeah, during the deadliest year on record for Palestinian children, she was feeling very optimistic. It's interesting because that was not shared by Palestinians, but she cares so much about peace, so obviously she's aware that Palestinians weren't very optimistic at the time, because everybody was basically acting as if they didn't exist.
I mean, flash forward to now. Do you know where those children are? Do you know if they're still alive? Do you know what happened to them?
Yeah, so these kids so far, thank God, are still alive, because they're all Israeli kids. Some of them are Arab and some of them are Jewish. Although some of them are Bedouins in the West Bank. I was in a village by the Dead Sea.
Wait, okay. So Bedouins in the West Bank, so an illegal settlement. So they're not... Wait a second, okay. So where the hell is this? So she was talking a second ago that the Bedouins she was talking about had Israeli citizenship. So then would be in the Nakab. But now suddenly we're in the West Bank, so, like, what, did they come down there? They wouldn't have been... If they were Bedouins in the West Bank, they wouldn't have been allowed in there, because they wouldn't be able to get a pass. So this already is making zero sense.
And, so far... nothing has harmed those kids, and I really hope it stays that way, but I imagine that all of them are just incredibly traumatized if they weren't before, because this would have been... I mean, some of these kids are not even old enough to go to school yet, and some of them are in their first years of their education, so they're...
This section is called Peaceful Coexistence Among Israeli Kids.
They're very, very young. And the attacks of October 7th and the following events.
What the following events? What were the following events, Maya?
Were difficult enough to go through as an adult, so I can't even imagine having...
You didn't go through them!
These events, being a young child and not having any understanding of what's going on, except for hearing sirens, hearing explosions, and not knowing why everything changed so much, especially after that event in the Bedouin village and how optimistic it was and how...
I mean, she just assumes that obviously everybody must have seen it exactly the way she did. I mean, let's remember, I mean, she's from the States. She just went over and decided to colonize a bit of Palestine for herself. She has zero connection to this place. She's just got there. And she's talking about this like she's part of it.
Peaceful it was, just the whiplash of really just a few hours, how that changed everything. So I can't even imagine what those kids are going through, and those are the people that I think about them every day. I mean, I think about a lot of people every.
I mean, it's interesting again because we're talking about like kids who are actually, well, I mean, not the Bedouins so much. I mean, they're being systematically, ethnically cleansed out of the Naqab, but I mean, they're still not in Gaza.
Every day, I lost people on the October 7th attacks. I was supposed to be at the Nova Festival, however, because.
Wait, if she was supposed to be there, then what was she doing at this Bedouin thing that was happening on the same day? Because it wasn't just the 7th.
My friends are a group of Arabs and Jews. Middle Easterners are not known for their planning skills.
Oh, a little bit of racism. Neat.
We'll say. It's a really chaotic region of the world. And, I'll give another example, like, if you want to go to a...
Oh, she's changing the subject. Okay, that's probably good, because she's already said too much. She can't have been going to this event and have been planning on going to a rave that happened on the same day. Because, again, I have to keep pointing this out, because it doesn't get pointed out enough. It was not supposed to happen on October 7th. That was a spontaneous decision. It was happening the 2 days before that. So if she was planning to go there, she should have been there on one of those 2 days. And the fact that she doesn't apparently even know that this is the case is a pretty strong indicator that she was never planning on going in the first place.
A Palestinian wedding, and they tell you that the wedding starts at 6. Really, you should be there at 9, because the wedding will be 3 hours behind whatever the stated time is.
Well, I wonder if that's something to do with the fact that Palestinians have to wait in ridiculously long queues at fucking checkpoints to get from one village to the next village over. I think that's probably just they have bad planning skills.
And everybody just knows that you're supposed to show up at 9, even if they say to show up at 6. So certain chaos is just ever present in that region of the world.
I wonder, again, is there any factor that you can think of, having lived there, that might explain why Palestinian people's lives are chaotic?
And we couldn't find a sober driver. We kept trying to figure out who that would be. There was no public transportation, because it would have fallen on Shabbat. And anyways, it would have been very far. It would have been hard to access by public transportation. So we couldn't count on that. We needed a sober driver. That fell through.
Yeah, I mean, when she's saying it was far, I mean, in other versions of this, she said she was in Al-Quds, in occupied East Jerusalem. That is hours away. And again, if you were planning to go to an event that was advertised for the 5th and 6th of October in Re'im, in the Gaza envelope settlements, it would be a little bit weird if you had completely different plans on the 5th and 6th.
And the ticket prices just kind of kept going up, and so we just didn't go. And really the lack of planning on my friend group's part is what saved me. But it didn't save all of my friends, unfortunately. So that's been very difficult to cope with. But so I have a lot of people in my thoughts these days. Yeah.
None of them in Gaza, as far as we've been able to hear.
It's just an unbearably horrible situation that it's really even psychologically very difficult to process.
Which is why she's not processing it. She's just kind of ignoring it.
Everything that happened and the magnitude of the tragedy.
Which tragedy?
Imagine. Like, thank God for chaos in a way that it saved you, but do you have any survivor's guilt knowing what happened to your friends?
Oh, absolutely.
It's worth noting that there is a comprehensive list, a published list. You can go to the Haaretz website of everyone who got killed during the October 7th offensive. So if what she's saying is true, she would, there would be names.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting as well that virtually everybody who was at that thing was actually from the surrounding area, not from the other end of the country.
It was worse when I had just come back from Israel. There were a few weeks where I just couldn't be bothered to get out of bed. I mean, it was a really distressing time, and I'm not normally a very depressive person. My sort of homeostasis is actually quite joyous and optimistic and energetic. So this first few weeks really took it out of me, and I was just coping with all kinds of questions like my.
I'm gonna skip ahead. We're building bridges between communities. Because she cares so much about the Palestinian community, which is why she's talking about how horrible things are, and she hasn't mentioned Gaza even once.
Such a different perspective to look for the commonality, because we all are familiar with the fighting, but to belong to that same region of the world, and to both not be strangers to the intimate experience that this conflict has caused. I'm not here to make any political commentary, like I said.
Well, this is political commentary, though, and it's complete rot. It's complete rot.
I'm not nearly well researched enough to do that.
I'm almost certain that that's true. I mean, that's also true about the whole turf thing. She clearly doesn't know anything about that shit either.
Except to acknowledge atrocity as atrocity. And
for example?
So tell us about your cultural background, because you have ties to both Jewish and Arab culture.
Yeah, so I'm Jewish, and the Jewish roots are from the former Soviet Union. So I grew up speaking Russian and English, and I went to many different schools growing up, just like 6 different schools before I went to university, and we only moved houses once. So I got to experience lots of different academic environments. But in one of the schools that I went to, they were offering an Arabic program for the first time ever, and that would have been my 7th grade year. And I decided to take Arabic. And from the moment I walked into that Arabic classroom as a naive 7th grader, I had realized that I had just made the best decision of my life. But my calculus was different back then, because I walked in and my teacher was extremely attractive. I was definitely in love with her. And that's on...
I'm gonna skip ahead.
I just have to flag that.
Okay, so now this is called LARPing as an Orthodox Jewish man. I think, because I want to get into some of the turf bullshit. Although this is mostly the Zionist bullshit. This is mostly Zionist bullshit we're getting here.
As yet another instance where something that seems like an inconvenience ends up protecting you in the long run, because now you're glad you didn't medicalize. At the time, it was very frustrating, this administrative issue. If you're looking for a simple way...
Yes, whatever it is, certainly do not donate to this grifter.
Conveniences or even pretty major inconveniences saving me. that absolutely happened. So because I was illegal and couldn't medicalize for several years, I experienced a lot of crazy things which kind of forced me to rethink my entire trajectory. So I would say that my journey to desistance really started, I mean it lasted for a very long time, but it really started in May of 2021 in a bomb shelter. I'd experienced
That's a story.
Yeah.
No, so a
Absolutely.
little bit longer than I had thought, but not much.
So in May of 2021, I had experienced my first war in Israel.
There was no war in Israel in 2021, though. I mean, let's just be very clear. That was Israel doing a massacre in Gaza. There was no fucking war in Israel. There were no fucking Palestinian boots on the ground in Israel. That was Israel doing a massacre in Gaza.
And it was a destabilizing and shocking and petrifying experience. I heard a siren, and I didn't know what was going on. I was with a different girl that I was dating. And I heard the siren, I looked at her, and I was like, what are we supposed to do? And she says, well, we need to run to a bomb shelter. And then I asked her, well, do you know where the bomb shelter is? She's like, no, I'm new to this apartment. So the first couple sirens, we just stood at the lowest level of the apartment complex.
I mean, it's also just worth noting that the rockets that get fired in response to these massacres, historically, the Palestinian resistance has brought out some more heavy-duty shit in the past couple of years, but historically it has not been anything that actually causes much damage at all. And to the extent that over a 20-year period, fewer people were killed by these rocket attacks from Gaza than in 1 month of Tel Aviv road traffic.
Because you're less likely to get hit by a rocket or debris of rockets if you're on the lower level. And eventually we figured out where the bomb shelter was, and we were just running back and forth. And bomb shelters are just incredibly depressing places to be in, especially for somebody of my generation, because there's no Wi-Fi in there, and
Oh wow, poor thing.
you can't distract yourself. You're just hearing sirens, and you hear the...
See, it's worth noting the reason, like the IDF even has historically called these rocket attacks symbolic is precisely because what they do, they don't actually really do any damage. They almost never hurt anybody. But they do create a situation where people in the entity cannot just go about their business as they are massacring people in Gaza, which is the whole point of it.
Explosions of when the rockets get intercepted by the Iron Dome. And these explosions, they shake the foundation of whatever building you're in. It's just utter terror, and especially if you don't make it into the bomb shelter on time. Like, there were a few times when I hid under a tree, and I just saw rockets go past, right over my head, just one after the other. They rip through the air. It's a terrifying experience. So in between trips to the bomb shelter, I went on the internet, I went on Instagram, which in hindsight was a mistake, and I saw the things that my lefty American friends were posting about this war. Basically, just...
Wow, she made the mistake of hearing... Remember, we were just hearing about how she wants to bring about peace and bring people together and all that. And she made and she's describing it as a mistake to hear that leftists in the U.S., I am assuming, were talking about the massacres Israel was carrying out in Gaza at the time.
Justifying that Israelis should live under rocket fire, and justifying the actions of Hamas, a terrorist group. And the logic behind their position was essentially that they were pro-Palestine. But
I wonder if the logic behind their position had something to do with the fact that Israel was murdering thousands of people in Gaza at that time. You think that might... Did you notice maybe they would have been talking about it? Because I remember I followed fucking leftist social media during that, and pro-Palestine social media, and mostly people were talking about the fucking massacres Israel's carrying out in Gaza. again. You think maybe they might have mentioned that?
Their pro-Palestinian position was not even remotely similar to my pro-Palestinian position.
Yeah, in that it was pro-Palestinian and yours is bullshit.
Because unlike any of these people, I actually have Palestinian friends, including...
Ooh, she has Palestinian friends.
Friends from Gaza, who still live in Gaza, who I'd met abroad.
They still live in Gaza, as in, you know for a fact that they are still alive? Because, like, so, okay, and she does not give a... She's shown absolutely no concern about what's going on in Gaza. And she supposedly has friends who are there now?
And while they wanted to justify...
What kind of fucking, like... Maia's friends in Gaza, do you believe this shit? She clearly does not give a fuck about you.
You know, anything done in the name of the Palestinian people, no matter how atrocious or heinous, I just wanted this all to end. I mean, I noticed that the West was really treating this war like a soccer or football match where they were just rooting for one side.
Well, the war, it was a fucking massacre. It was not really... There was very little in the way of actual military confrontation going on.
But I wasn't of that opinion. I was rooting for this whole thing to stop. And I was young and naive, and I basically thought, okay, well, these people just, you know, I used to believe what they believed, and I've been...
Okay, let's hear it. What do they believe? You never... This is the thing with your Zionist grifters. They can basically never manage to actually accurately state what these people they supposedly used to believe, believe.
Lucky enough to have an experience that showed me that I was being lied to, and...
What was the experience? You were there during a massacre, and there were some rockets that flew overhead, and none of them hit you, which is the normal experience, because they almost never hit anybody.
A lot of these kids I knew from debate, so...
Oh God.
I trusted their reasoning skills, and I trusted my ability to form a coherent and persuasive argument. You know, I knew some basic things about ethos, pathos, and logos. I knew which logical fallacies to stay away from.
Do you, okay, but can you talk about what was going on, what Israel was doing in Gaza now, at the time? She has such empathy for all sides and everything like that, but, she's talking about these rockets like it was the worst thing that was happening at the time.
And I thought, well, I just need to provide them with
really the only thing.
Credible data and evidence to show them that Hamas is a terrorist group, which not only endangers Israelis, but also drags Palestinians into endless wars, uses them as human shields.
Well, see, there's the problem. There is no credible data saying that. It's because it's bullshit. It's one of your bullshits. So maybe if you're going to look for something with credibility, try not that.
And ultimately, their goal is to destroy Israel at all costs, and one of those costs is that it really doesn't matter how many Palestinians die in the process.
Well, wait a second, but hang on. By whose hand do they die, Maya? By whose hand do they die? Because I think that maybe there might be somebody else who's choosing to kill large numbers of them. Could it possibly be that maybe Israel is doing that?
And I thought, well, surely this will convince them that they're not seeing the whole story and that they shouldn't support the same genocidal regime that wants to wipe out Israel, that in the process is willing
genocidal regime. Shut the fuck up.
Wipe out as many Palestinians as they can get away with, and that teaches Palestinian children from the age of toddlerhood that their biggest aspiration in life is to become a martyr.
But no, this is just straight up fucking Israeli propaganda and not even very well delivered.
And to engage in terror attacks and suicide bombings.
Suicide? Maya, when was the last suicide bombing? Do you remember? I mean, I don't even think you were alive at the time. You're 20, she's 24 years old. I think she wasn't old enough to remember it. Because the thing is, The reason, I mean, one of the interesting things that you learn when you actually, like, read what the Resistance has to say and, like, read their thinking on these things, like, the reason that there are no suicide bombings, the reason they don't do that is because they weren't, like, you get this idea in a lot of the propaganda that is just how they are, you know, it's a death cult, all they want to do is die and everything. Like, no. That, like, I mean, you read, like, if you read Sinwar's book, for example, I mean, it is very clear what was going on, which was they could build explosives. They did not have any way to deliver explosives except by hand. And so they did that, while trying to figure out as quickly as possible a way to not have to do that, because their position, their way of resisting has been to resist with whatever they have at any given time, so that there's never a period when they're not resisting. So the reason they're not doing that anymore is because they don't have to. Because they've got technology that allows them not to. It was never their preference to do it that way. None of this was their preference.
I thought that, you know, if I just presented them with a credible argument that they would look into it.
But you didn't present a credible argument, it was just easily debunked bullshit.
Into it, and that they would include this into their logical calculus. I ended up being...
Yeah, and I'm sure they did. Maia is a Zionist shill who doesn't seem to give a shit that the regime that she's living in is massacring thousands of Palestinians right now.
Wrong in that assumption, and instead all of these people just became angry at me. They called me a colonizer, a settler sympathizer.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wonder why they called you those things, Maia. Could it have been because you were colonizing people and sympathizing with the settlers? And
a lot of them just blocked me.
Yeah, because, I mean, you were saying a bunch of racist bullshit. That's what I would do, too. Fuck off. Hey, Tomas, ¿cómo estás?
I just need to set the scene.
We are watching an intersectional grifter. She combines the Zaka October 7th grifting of Chaimad Mezgin or Rami Davidian with the turf grifting of Graham Linehan or JK Rowling into one horribly haircutted person. Like, seriously, the fucking haircut.
So listeners, hear it one more time. You are taking a break from hiding in the bomb shelter as these terrorist attacks are happening around you and the earth is shaking. You are in danger. Everyone around you is...
well, I mean, very clearly they weren't.
Scared for their lives. And you step outside to check Instagram. And people safe in the comfort...
I condemn Sabra hummus. Fuck that shit.
...of their American homes are calling you a colonizer.
Just because you're a colonizer. God, that's so sad. Just because she's a colonizer, they were calling her a colonizer.
For trying to say that maybe there's more to this story. That is wild.
Yeah. It was one of those paradigm-shifting moments because at that moment, even though I didn't have the words to describe it, because it's really hard to think eloquently when there are rockets flying over you, so I was just generally scatterbrained, but I did realize I had enough cognitive wherewithal to realize that something is up. So there's something going on here that I
wonder if that something was something that was going on in Gaza at the time that everybody was pissed off about, and then you're here talking about these fucking rockets that don't hurt anybody, that like literally land in just remote empty fields and things and make a little hole and otherwise are just go basically unnoticed. Like if there were no sirens, nobody would even know they were going on because they basically never do anything. I wonder if the other thing going on might have been the fucking massacre in Gaza at the time.
That I'm not understanding. Like
I would say so.
I thought were, people who I thought I could trust their reasoning have proven themselves to be untrustworthy. So that was one paradigm-shifting moment in which I realized that
they were untrustworthy because they cared about the fact that there was a massacre going on and didn't like that she was being racist.
Pastor left was really hypocritical and incredibly inconsistent. Because
What do you mean inconsistent? Like, where's the inconsistency? We haven't heard an inconsistency yet.
I realized that clearly these people don't care at all about the Jews, and that became pretty
Really? That's what you got out of that?
evident that their anti-Zionism was anti-Semitism.
Based on what? Like, we haven't seen it yet.
So that became very clear to me. But an interesting aspect of this whole phase...
Well, see, what you missed, I don't know how recently you got in here, Tomas, but she was talking about how... see, she has this really neat lie that she tells about how she totally would have been... She survived October 7th by not being there. She totally would have been there, except she wasn't there. She was planning on going there, except that she had other plans on the days that it was actually advertised to be taking place. And she was doing those things, so it's not clear, so none of that is clear. But she was, like, talking about peace. She was going to a peace event. She wants to build bridges, but she doesn't give a shit about what happens to anyone in Gaza. I mean, like, literally, they haven't been mentioned. She claims that she has friends there. Like, if I, like, I don't know about you, but if I have friends in a place that is being just completely massacred like this, and subjected to a genocide in all these ways, oh, link spammer, get the fuck out of here, then, I mean, I would be, like, kind of broken up about that, and I would be talking about it all the time. She supposedly has these friends in Gaza. She doesn't say a word about them. Like, seriously, I wonder, I have a feeling that they do not necessarily think that she's their friend, if they ever did, because she just so clearly does not give a shit.
Of my life is that because I was searching the internet basically for credible data and evidence to show them that there was more to the story. You know, we know that algorithms are incredibly powerful, and at this time, the newest iteration of the culture wars had already started raging in the United States.
Wow, I mean, that's like some shit that she just read that somewhere. Nobody just says the newest iteration of the culture wars has begun raging in the United States.
And the pro-Israel position, as I had begun to learn, was affiliated with the right wing of these culture wars.
Yeah, which is interesting, isn't it? Like, when, I mean, we're talking about 2020, so you're saying that the pro-Israel position was associated with fucking fascists. Like, that should tell you something about the pro-Israel position. Maybe these are bad people.
So, I was looking up pro-Israel content, and I was getting more content that was critical of the left, and including critical of gender ideology.
Yeah, she was looking at, so she looked for pro-Israel content, and she found, like, fast shit. Gender ideology.
So that's really what started the process of me realizing that actually...
See, the version that she has told elsewhere was that she just had this realization when she was going to a bomb shelter and she decided she didn't have time to put her binder on, and she declared that being trans is a luxury belief, whatever the hell that is, because you wouldn't have time to put a binder on before going into the fucking bomb shelter.
Something is going on here with, you know, well, first of all, that transgenderism had absolutely exploded.
No, but it hadn't.
Because I got into it really early, and I was never...
Well, yeah, then you know perfectly well that it's bullshit.
...entrenched within the trans community. And even at my university, I just chose to hang out with the Arabs instead because I found, you know, the queer cohort to be insufferable and not curious and not intellectually stimulating. And certainly their aesthetics did not allure me in any way. I mean...
Wait, I don't think you need to be talking about other people's aesthetics there, Maya. Between your haircut, which is just an imitation of my dog, and look at these fucking patterns. Look at the patterns. This is some shit that the IDF came up with in order. It's visual torture designed to make Palestinians talk. That's what this is.
You know, I wanted normalcy. Normalcy is what allured me to, you know, wanting to live as a man, because I just didn't have any models of what it would look like to grow up and be a lesbian, to be a...
we're talking about in the 2000s, she had no models of lesbians? That's so weird because they were everywhere. But then she also somehow manages to have this weird version of 2021 in Palestine where there's absolutely nothing going on in Gaza that anyone would have any reason to be at all worried about. Yeah, it was just some rockets.
Butch lesbian. I had basically ruled that out from the moment that I was 12.
So you had a model and you didn't like it.
So I was not entrenched within the trans community, and I didn't realize just how insane it had become with the men and women's sports.
She's talking about, what she's talking about there, of course, is trans women in women's sports, which is something that has been going on for decades, literally. Like, that has been going on literally for longer than she's been alive. That's not some new thing that was just a wow. That is some shit that, like, Nazis found out about 5 minutes ago, and they're acting like it's a new thing. But it's been going on for ages, and the reason you haven't heard about it is because it's never caused a fucking problem.
And just with all, I mean, as soon as non-binary had started to happen, a couple years after I had gotten into trans,
as soon as non-binary had started to okay, so she's 24. And she says she had gotten into trans when she was like 12. Okay. So, and this is, well, let me just make sure. I'm trying to calculate the years. This is a year ago. So this is 2024. So, 2012, she was born in 2000. And she's saying that non-binary started to happen in the mid-2020s. Like, that's so weird because it was happening way before that. I mean, it's been happening all along, let's just be clear. But it was something that people talked about using various terms, including non-binary, well before that.
I already wrote it off as not the same thing that I was because I wanted to assimilate. And these people wanted to stick out. So, but
I mean, that's not actually strictly true.
I didn't sort of see the trans.
And also, if you wanted to assimilate and like not stick out, I don't entirely buy that because, again, the patterns. Look at the fucking patterns. Look at this weird ass paisley. Like the paisley on this vest. I just noticed this. The paisley on this vest does not even match from one side of the vest to the other. She clearly does not want to stand out. Like,
community evolved from being a really niche and rare thing to being, to subsuming every Western institution.
Subsuming every Western institution. I mean, it's so interesting because she throws these buzzwords in rarely enough that you can get an idea of the normal way she talks. And so it's that much more jarring when she just throws in some fash buzzword. Subsuming every Western institution.
I started to see that in, basically being sucked into...
Like, for example, what? Which Western institutions did it subsume?
The internet rabbit hole with COVID and just, in this
jump cut
phase of my life. And then the stories of detransitioners had started to pop up.
Okay, and for anyone who doesn't know this, in this channel, I feel like most of the people watching right now probably are already aware of this. Detransitioners are extremely rare. In fact, there were already studies indicating this. First of all, there are a couple of things. You just have to point this out because there's so much bullshit, and anyone who's watching this who is not familiar with it, watching it on the VOD or whatever, let me just break this down. Detransition is extremely rare. What is the most common stated reason amongst detransitioners, and there was just a major study in the past couple of months, the largest study of its kind confirming this. People who detransition because they experienced discrimination, because they found that people weren't allowing them to live their lives, basically. It wasn't because they suddenly decided they weren't trans, it was because they were being treated badly. and most of them will eventually try to transition again later. The sort of detransitioners who like make the right-wing media circuit and go around to like fucking conversion therapy grifters like this are a tiny subset. Like, literally, we're talking about the fingers on one hand. That is, so, yeah, I mean, complete bullshit.
And so the first detrans story I saw, you know, I saw a little thing about it on YouTube, and I clicked on it. And people have asked me before, like, how did you feel clicking on it? And honestly, the answer to that is that my worldview had already been threatened a few times before, and I emerged perfectly fine from it. So I was actually pretty intrigued.
Not only your worldview, but your life.
But no, like, it hadn't. Like, seriously, we're still talking about this as if she was actually in any kind of danger.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah, no, much kidding, lots of kidding, nothing but kidding, because that's complete bullshit.
And the first detrans story I saw, I mean, with this first wave of detransitioners, I didn't...
The first wave, that's such a cool way of putting it, because it makes it sound like there are a lot of them. There aren't. There literally aren't. It is a tiny number, and the ones that actually make fucking YouTube videos about it, who are like... Because, I mean, there are people who like, detransition for, but are, that it's not because they're not trans. And the ones who are the absolute tiniest number, a complete rarity, are the ones who detransition and decide to make a living lying about trans people and inciting violence against them.
Relate to their stories at all, because they had gotten caught up in the peer social contagion, the peer-to-peer, you know.
This is just a complete lie here. There is no evidence of any social contagion. In fact, the so-called study that was supposedly proved this, which had been on PLOS One, got taken down because all it was a survey of hate group members. And they use this, and like Littman, I think her name was, use this as proof that there is rapid onset gender dysphoria, and it's a social contagion, because she did a survey of hate group members, and they said they thought maybe that sounded legit. That was literally the entire thing, and so when it finally got subjected to any level of scientific scrutiny by the people who published it in the first place, nothing remained of it.
The type of phenomenon that we talk about a lot these days, which is mostly with teenage girls.
I mean, is like far-right grifters.
One girl will come out as trans after spending a lot of time on the internet, and then her entire peer group will follow.
No, that's not how any of this is. Like, this does not happen. This is just made up.
At least a large portion of it.
No, I mean... unless you're saying that a large portion of what you just said is made up. I mean, I would agree. 100% is a large portion.
Girls were this first wave for the most part very feminine and heterosexual. And I thought, well, these are the people who regret transition. I'm not like them. Therefore, I am a true transsexual.
First of all, like, who the fuck... Again, we're talking about the 2010s. Who the fuck is using the words a true transsexual? Like, that is some 1970s fucking Ray Blanchard shit.
Therefore, I won't regret it. So I stayed in the true trans camp for a couple years.
What the hell is the true trans camp? Like, and what I find interesting is this admission that actually she had no connection to, like, trans people in general. So, like, literally there's nobody who can back her up on any of this shit.
For seeing all kinds of, like, logical inconsistencies.
Because the thing is, I mean, and that's not an entirely uncommon thing for these kinds of grifters. Because the thing is, if you were part of the trans community before you decided to do a detrans grift, I'm not talking about actual, like, detransitioning for whatever reason. I'm talking about doing the grift like she's doing it. She's making money going around trying to make trans people's lives worse. That's what I mean by the detrans grift. Let me just be very clear about that. But a lot of the time they have no connection to the trans community, because if they had connections to the trans community, that would mean there would be witnesses. There would be people who could say, well, wait a second, that narrative doesn't fit. We knew her really well, and this isn't what she was doing, or whatever. But, so it's very convenient to have no connections at all.
Being sort of having the time to grow up and being mature enough to sort of battle with the cognitive dissonance and to realize that, you know, actually the classic true transsexual really is just a very gender non-conforming homosexual.
No, it isn't. What the hell? The very classic true trans... Like, that sounds... That has, like, the meter of, like, a fucking cheer. The very classic true transsexual is just a very gender-conforming homosexual. Like... Really... non-conforming, rather. Like... This is just literally fucking Ray Blanchard bullshit from the 70s that she's talking about.
And so when I had that realization, you know, that's the moment in which I realized that actually a great injustice is being done to all kinds of young people who are very non-conforming, whether it be in their presentation, their gender presentation, or...
Well, I would agree there is a great injustice being done, and you're helping it be done.
Or whether
you're part of that injustice, Maya. It's not the first injustice you've been part of. I mean, look at the injustice you're doing to your alleged friends in Gaza by just lying about their situation.
Because they have, like, you know, ADHD or autistic traits or something.
Oh, wow. I mean, it is just one... the hits just keep coming. I mean, it's all of the fucking transphobic bullshit hoax lines. Oh, it's autism. Oh, it's ADHD. It's, like, literally anything, except it's just who they are.
Of that nature. So that made me really think twice about it, but from the moment that I started to encounter that content, it was still years before I had decided to actually pull the trigger on desistance. And really living through...
Desistance is such an interesting word, considering she didn't actually transition in any, like, discernible way.
War gave me a chance to have sort of second thoughts about it, because, you know, especially with the type of war that we're seeing now.
What type of war?
Between Israel and Hamas. Which is an extremely long and drawn-out war that could not have been anticipated to be this long and drawn-out. And
wow, she cares so much about the Palestinians.
This undoubtedly impacts supply chains. And because I've been researching this whole process of transition for a decade at that point...
I shouldn't say it. She clearly does care. She cares about the supply chains.
I knew that after several years of taking testosterone, it poses massive risks to the integrity of the female reproductive system.
No, it doesn't. Like, what do you mean, the integrity?
There have been cases of women taking testosterone and basically...
trans men, I think you mean.
Needing to have an emergency hysterectomy because of the level of atrophy, becoming septic. Essentially.
That's not how that works. I mean, yes, sepsis is a thing that can happen. Atrophy is a thing that can happen. But, like, atrophy does not cause sepsis. Infections cause sepsis. Like, taking tea does not cause sepsis.
And when your reproductive system is removed, your body's natural ability to produce its own hormones goes away. And so therefore, you'd be reliant on pharmaceutical companies for the duration of your life. And because I knew that I wanted to live in the Middle East, and specifically in a country that's incredibly prone to war...
Not that that's any fault of its own. Jesus. Like...
I knew that I couldn't rely on supply chains, and that this whole situation...
I mean, I have to say, the fact that... first of all, like, clearly she isn't there now. win, but also the fact that it really says something. That is an absolute fucking win for the resistance. That you have, that people who are talking about it are like, well, yeah, you can't rely on the supply chain. That is a fucking win. That is like the goal of the sanctions. Long may they live.
Become incredibly tenuous.
Well, not briefly may they be necessary, but may they live as long as they're needed.
If there's anything that's more unhealthy than, flooding your body with copious amounts of cross-sex hormones, it's having absolutely no sex hormones in your body.
Well, I mean, you could just not colonize Palestine.
And not being able to access them, sort of the uncertainty around whether or not you're going to be able to access these hormones. And that's another moment in which I realized, like, I really have to think twice about this. But even...
It's worth noting that at no time did she actually take any. Like...
Even at that point, even when I intellectually realized that this path was dangerous and would really impact my...
I mean, it sounds like actually what you came to the conclusion of is that the Zionist regime is not a great place to be queer. Which is true. But why go there and why fucking stand them?
My ability to live the type of full adult life that I wanted to...
Bueno, yo dudo en este caso que se trate directamente de Israel. Porque Israel tiene metas muy concretas en lo propagandístico. Y esto, bueno, esta weá transfóbica no tiene nada que ver. Aunque, como ha dicho ella misma, es cierto que muchos weones que venden la pomada sionista también venden la pomada transfóbica. Pero yo dudo que la plata venga, en su caso, de Israel, sino más bien de los fachos gringos. Porque ellos se obsesionan más con esto.
I really didn't see another way to live. And so even with that understanding, it was still quite a long time before I decided to actually desist.
Well, she talks about this like she was actually doing any concrete steps towards transition in the first place. Like, she had nothing to desist from.
And what really pulled the trigger on that were two main events. The first one is that I ended up in one of these GenSpec conferences.
That is a far-right conversion therapy organization. So, like, let me get this straight. This is interesting. So, supposedly, she had not already desisted from, like, not transitioning, and she was already going to anti-trans conferences where they talk about how to eradicate trans people. Why?
And I had met detransitioners in real life, including butch lesbians. And that was the first time in which I realized that there were people who were very similar to me. And
grifters. Right-wing grifters.
They were not, in fact, true transsexuals, which is now an idea I don't buy into.
Well, I mean, Ray Blanchard will be so fucking disappointed that you don't buy into it. Like, literally nobody has bought into that idea since, like, 1985.
But I realized that there are butch women who take this path, and they still regret it. It still causes them harm. And that's the moment that as far as taking these ideas from the intellectual and putting them into the personal, that I realized...
But then why the fuck were you at a GenSpec conference? Like, this does not make any sense. That's not some place you would go if you were still convinced that, if you were still of the opinion that you personally were trans, because they hate trans people at GenSpec. They want there not to be trans people. They want to hurt trans people, actually.
Oh my god, like, I need to give up this dream that I've had for half of my life.
Why?
And
because some assholes think you shouldn't?
I didn't know what that was going to look like. So after this conference, I came back to Israel, and I was really grappling with these ideas and really struggling through probably the most major cognitive dissonance I've ever been through. Because I know everybody over there.
Well, another jump cut.
In the city that I lived in, because of the languages I speak the most commonly spoken languages over there, and I really sort of integrated into all kinds of different cultural backgrounds.
Yeah, I'm sure she totally integrated into Palestinian cultural backgrounds. I mean, you can tell she cares about Palestinians so fucking much in the midst of a genocide that she hasn't mentioned once. That she's been talking about fucking rockets from 5 years ago as if they were the worst thing that ever happened.
Sectors of the society, and including people who are very religious, who knew me as a man.
And no, they didn't.
So I saw absolutely no way of being able to disentangle myself from that. But really, when the October 7th attacks started happening, at some point, even after I'd sort of psychologically desisted and realized that, it's dangerous that I am, one, an adult human female, which means that I'm a woman.
Oh, wow, okay, so that's a shout-out to neo-Nazi grifter Kelly J. Keen Minshall. I always end up calling her Kelly K because then she becomes KKK Minshall, which is fitting because she's a neo-Nazi. She was a Nazi before she became a TERF.
That is dangerous for adult human females to take testosterone.
No, it isn't. It literally isn't.
And that it's uncertain. It's a very...
In fact, actually... testosterone is actually prescribed to cis women to help with low libido. Because guess what? Cis women produce testosterone too. And actually one of the things that they use for cis women who have low libido is low doses of testosterone. Because one of the causes of low libido in cis women, apart from just, men... a lot of them, is actually low testosterone levels can do that. So, this is just complete bullshit.
Uncertain outcome.
I mean, I say that as if that's a change from the rest of what we've been looking at here. It's all been complete bullshit, but this is wild bullshit.
Even though I understood all of these things, I was still living my life as a man, but I don't...
No, you weren't.
To a few of my close friends who did know that I was female, about my reservations around this whole life path.
Yeah, I love this idea that supposedly,
And so then the October...
because she did not actually take any steps in terms of social transition. So all of her papers, her ID, her passport, which you have to show your ID a lot in the Zionist entity, because again, you got checkpoints and all sorts of other bullshit. That would have an F on it. Every single official document would have an F on it. Literally, and not to mention the name and everything. Yeah, and so nobody. This is nonsense.
Attacks happened. And
which she survived. She survived them by being not there. It's such an amazing heroic story of survival. You see, she would have been there if she had been planning to be there, but she wasn't actually planning to be there. She was someplace completely different, and because she was in someplace completely different, because that's where she was going to be, she survived. It's like how I survived 9/11 by being in Cincinnati at the time. It's a just amazing heroic story.
For me, the extent of my transition really was just, introducing myself under a male name and wearing a binder.
Yeah, so...
And at some point, I'd woken up to a siren on the morning of October 7th.
Okay, and with that, I just noticed the time, and it is time to wrap up. So this has been our introduction to the crossover between Chaim Odmezgin and JK Rowling. October 7th, grifting meets detransition grifting. Maia Poet. Thank you to everyone who joined in. It's always good to see you. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I will be back at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time tomorrow night. Hope you have a good rest of your night, and I hope to see you there. Oh, and let me drop my Discord link for anyone who wants to keep in touch in between streams. Hang on, where the hell is... Well, my mouse is being annoying. Dropping that in chat. Have a good night.